Hi, I'm Christine. I have been coming to Southside for almost 8 months. It feels much longer than that because it feels like family. It feels like home to me, but it has only been 8 months. And I'm a mom of four. I have four amazing kids. I'm a wife to Daniel. I'm also a business owner and an advocate for human beings to live their very best lives. So that's who I am. Growing up, my life was challenging, I would say. My parents divorced when I was very young. They didn't get along very well for the majority of my childhood. They did their best. As an adult today, I see that. But growing up, it was a lot of back and forth between my parents. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, which was actually a huge blessing in my life because they really shaped and molded a lot of who I am with their examples and their influence. But I did have a lot of great things in my childhood too. I was a dancer. I spent a lot of time in hockey arenas with my brother. I had a sister later in life when I was 10, and she was like my baby, my best friend as I was becoming a teenager. And I just always loved being around people. And so that's how I spent most of my childhood, with friends and family, and I was really blessed to have the opportunity to travel and see a lot of the world with my grandparents and my parents too. So while there was a lot of instability, there was pockets of stability too, and I don't look back at my childhood or my upbringing as a negative thing, as sometimes a lot of people from divorced families would. It was actually a really positive and beautiful upbringing, and my parents did a really great job to give us a beautiful life. When I was in my elementary years, I actually attended Catholic school, and that was my primary faith upbringing, was in Catholicism. I was baptized Catholic as a baby. I attended Catholic church with my family and went to Catholic school, and so that's really my first memories of talking about Jesus, knowing about him and about the Bible. My grandmother, I brought a picture of her because she's probably the most significant memories that I have. Reading the Bible, praying, talking about Jesus was through her, and she was a very committed Catholic woman, and she believed in attending church and praying the rosary and all the things that happen in Catholicism in that practice. And so that is my first memories of faith and Jesus. My grandmother passed away when I was in high school, at the very end of high school, and that was my first real experience with loss, but also with watching someone be not afraid to die, but excited to pass on and to, meet Jesus. And I will never forget, as long as I live, as she was lying in this hospital, in this hospice ward of the hospital, knowing that she was going to die, telling me that she was so excited because she knew that Jesus was on the other side to welcome her. And that memory is just burned in my brain because it was just such a beautiful moment, but also so sad for me because of the loss as a teenager that I felt of losing my grandmother. So those are like my first core memories of Jesus. As I started to develop into a young adult and a mother and those sorts of things, I sort of went away from my faith and away from Jesus, because at that time in my life, I didn't really understand what my grandmother was actually trying to communicate to me in her last moments. And it was lost on me at that time. And so I went through many years where I didn't really have any connection to my faith. However, when I had my children, I knew that I wanted them to have the notion of God and Jesus in their life, and I just wasn't in a place to be that example to them. And so I enrolled them in Catholic school. I baptized them Catholic because that's what I was taught to do growing up. And it wasn't until much later in my life that I really came back to Jesus. And it happened really in the last couple of years I had some major things happen in my life that were wildly out of my control, that made me feel hopeless and powerless, and I didn't know how I was going to get through them. And there was a quiet voice that spoke to me and said, it's going to be okay. And I knew that it was God, and I knew that I had to come back to my faith, or maybe to a new faith, in order to get through the things that I was being challenged by. And so my son decided to leave this province and move with his dad to another province, and that was the first thing that brought me to my knees and to my powerlessness and to a reconnection to God. The second thing was my daughter became very ill, and I sat beside her in the hospital not knowing if she was going to live. And it was in that moment that I just really broke down and said, I need you in my life. I can't do this alone. I've tried for so many years to do it alone, and I'm surrendering to you. And I didn't know what it meant in that moment long term, but I knew that I was changed, and I knew that my life would never be the same. And in those quiet moments in the hospital, it's hard to explain, but it was like there was a gentle hand on my back that said, this will be fine. No matter what happens, I'm with you, and this will be okay. And so in coming to Southside and reading the Bible again, what I've come to know about Jesus is that he is the example of humanness, of what it means to be human, of what it means to have faith, to be faithful, and to care for others, and to walk through life with purpose. And so that's what Jesus is to me today. I can't imagine my life without Jesus anymore. So I don't see any point of trying to, or even considering a life that is without him. I feel today that my foundation is in him and his example, and I know that he walks beside me in everything that I do, and I know that the path is with him, and I just can't even imagine my life not following the example that he set for me, and trying to do my very best to exemplify that in my life, not just for me, but for my family and for those around me. And I think there's a lot of freedom in trying to be more like him, and knowing that there's grace and there's, forgiveness for, getting off the path, right? But the ultimate mission for me is to exemplify what it means to be human, and to share my humanity and his good news of faith and love, and ultimately freedom for all. The stress of trying to be something that I'm not has left me, and I think in society oftentimes we feel like we have to be a certain way, and in being connected to Jesus and his purpose, you just know that that's actually not a thing. Your purpose is to be human and to be rooted in your humanity, and you don't have to be anything but that. And if you just share love and acceptance and faith, life can be really a beautiful, beautiful experience. I definitely will always, invite people to find it for themselves. I don't think it's necessarily something that I can force them to do, or would want to force them to do, because if someone had come to me, let's say 10 years ago, and said, come and, meet Jesus, I probably would have said, no. I said, I already know. I've been to church. I know what that's about. It's okay. But because of my experiences and the things that have happened in my life, I believe it was God's timing that brought me back to the place that I am today. And it's so much different than the relationship I had with God and church before. So while I want it for everyone, I know that it's not about me. It absolutely is about their relationship with God and their journey. And so I think my example is the best thing that I can do. And if anyone ever expresses interest, to always welcome them. I think that's the most beautiful thing, is that everybody is welcome, and Jesus is for everyone. And I truly believe that Jesus is the foundation of our humanity. And so how could he not be for everyone? in making the decision to follow Jesus fully, I think the biggest thing for me is that I don't feel like I have to be in control anymore, because ultimately I'm not. And there's peace in my heart knowing that no matter what happens, I can get through it. I will get through it. I will be better for it. And that there's a plan for my life that I have no idea about. And that's a really exciting and beautiful thing. And I have full faith that Jesus is there with me, caring for me and guiding me with little nudges along the way, nudges onto the path, right? And like I said, it's always going to be times and instances where I get off the path, where I try to impose my own will. But since making this decision, I've always found my way back, and I have full faith that I always will. And I think for me, the stress of trying to control every little thing in my life is the biggest thing that has left me. I feel lighter. I think I've said it a few times, that I feel free, and incredibly grateful for Jesus's influence on my life. I'm getting baptized today because I believe it's the physical action of committing my life to Jesus. He says in the Bible, if this is your path, then be baptized. And so that's what I'm doing. And I hope that my example encourages others to do the same if that's what they choose. I'm excited to do it today in front of my family, my children, people that I care about in this community. And I feel like it will just solidify the foundation that I've already started to build in my relationship with Jesus.